Good evening, all. Today, we will be having a session on best practices for cybersecurity. In this session, we will cover most of the popular attack techniques and look at the measures for mitigation and prevention of the same. In cybersecurity, there is a popular saying that in a battle between cyber attackers and cyber defenders, uh, cyber defenders have to be successful every time, while an attacker needs to be successful only one time. So it's a really tough job for cyber defense. As you can see in this slide about recent cybercrime case, almost many major that enterprises have been breached recently. You must be reading regularly that some one day or the other, some big enterprise gets breached. So this is about SpiceJet, Razorpay, Amazon, Oil India, Tech Mahindra, Air India, Domino's. So common factor among these is that they have not been breached because of some sophisticated attack technique or something. Uh, they have been breached because of some security misconfiguration or using old unpatched systems. So attacker just need one security loophole to enter or breach your systems. From there on, he can escalate the attack. So as you can see that cyber attack on Indian government agencies have more than doubled in 2022. You know, it has been said that India lives in one of the toughest neighborhoods geographically. No, it is, I think, only nation who is being surrounded by two nuclear powered states who are not friendly with us, particularly friendly. So because of those reasons, cyber attacks have been escalating on Indian government in the recent times. India, US, Indonesia, and China account for nearly 40% of total cyber attacks on government agencies. In 2022 itself, 50 government websites were hacked. Certain, which is the prime agency for handling or for analyzing or investigating these attacks, have prevented around 3.24 lakhs malicious frauds. And you must have heard about the recent AIMS data breach, so in which they were hit by a ransomware attack because of old vulnerable systems they were using. So, as you can see, the cyber crime rate in India is particularly higher as compared to other countries. Almost 68% it is there. So, which is the third largest economy? So, people might say Japan or something, but cyber cost of cyber crime, the damages caused by cyber crime is almost the third largest economy in the world, and it is expected to grow much higher every year. The cost of cybercrime are exponentially rising each year, almost like 10.5 trillion dollars. So these are certain cybersecurity facts. Every 39 seconds, there is a cyber attack. Almost 2,200 attacks every day. 3 lakh new malware is created every day. 2.8 billion malware attacks happened in the first half of 2022. Trojans account for 58% of all computer malware. And you know the weakest point, weakest security link in any organization is considered to be human error. So 52% of the attacks started due to human error. 94% of malware is delivered via email. So that is one of the major attack vectors. So in the upcoming slides, we will look at how to detect such attacks, how the attacks are being carried out. And 52% of malware can use USB drives to bypass network security. So in a lot of government agencies, there is a mandate of having air-gapped networks in which the confidential data resides on network that are isolated from internet. But malwares today are designed in a way that they can use measures to exfiltrate data out of those networks also. So now this is one of the major attack vectors, social engineering attacks. Almost majority of breaches starts with a social engineering attack. I majorly classify attacks in two types. One is attacks that can be carried out remotely without any human interaction. So remotely you can target an organization, they have some vulnerable systems, the vulnerability you can exploit and compromise the system. And the second category of attacks are the client side attacks, in which some kind of human interaction is required from the victim organization. Just by listening to the definition, you would think that the first attack should be easier to carry out because it does not require any human interaction, while the second requires some kind of human interaction. But the better of the fact is that more than 90% of the breaches start with a client-side interaction, human errors or human mistakes. So here we will look at certain modus operandi used by attackers. Phishing. You must have all heard about phishing, wherein attackers send a maliciously crafted email in which they try to lure you into clicking some links, downloading some attachments, tricking into opening such attachments. So this is one of the major methods used by attackers to target an organization, because every user has an email account. You can just send an email account and lure victim into clicking some link or opening some attachment. So there are three categories here: mass scale phishing, in which widely malicious email is being distributed without being specifically targeted; spear phishing, in which an email is custom made or tailored according to a organization. So they will collect lot of information about a particular organization, and they will create a tailor-made email to target those organizations. And third category is the whaling, in which particularly major employees or the higher posts are being targeted, like CEO, CFO. So there is one thing called business email compromise, in which attackers try to compromise email accounts of top that professionals, top individual, that top post in an organization, and then send an email using their email ID to other of that professionals. So they believe that the email has come from CFO or CEO. So there have been incidents in which fund transfers have happened. Mails have come from CFO to transfer funds in particular accounts, and those way they have been executed. So if we look at the numbers, 94% of mail is delivered via email. 32% of all information breaches involve phishing. 45% of malware is disguised as MS Office document. So majority of phishing starts with a MS Office document. They send a maliciously crafted document exploiting some known Office vulnerabilities or embedded with macros. So when the victim opens it, some code is being executed to download other piece of malwares. So this phishing incidents particularly dramatically increased after COVID-19. So phishing is also one of the major cause of ransom attacks. So basically, if you look at the objectives of cyber attack, it could be financial gain or espionage, basically state-sponsored attacks in which they try to gather information about the particular countries, or they are financially motivated, in which they can encrypt your data and demand ransom, or they can steal your data and sell on black market, dark web, or sell to your adversaries. So basically, the phishing has been considered as the major cause of all ransomware attacks. So in this, we will look at some certain examples of phishing. So basically, here you can see what they do is they try to register domains with some character differing in spellings. Also, they can use characters that are visually similar, like they can use 2N in place of a M or 2V in place of a W. Like in Twitter, they can use TWVITTER. So they will try to register domains that are similar looking. And people in a hurry always overlook certain things. Also, so this is, as you can see, income tax spelling is wrong. This is a phishing mail. Here, this is one more sample phishing mail. So here the fact is, this is an image with URL hyperlink, not an attachment. Also, what we need to do is before clicking any link in email, we need to hover our mouse over that link to see the actual domain name. Because in the mail, you can set any that display URL, but the actual URL could be different. So that precaution needs to be taken while opening emails. This is another such phishing email. Here you can see that the domain looks genuine. That clickable hyperlink looks genuine, email.gov.in. But if you hover your mouse over it, the actual domain name is this. So that is one of the way to trick the victims. Also here what they do is they actually create a duplicate copy of genuine emails and just replace that hyperlinks in the mail. Here the verify button points to this domain, which is a fake. Here also one of the phishing mails sent particularly to defense personnel. The actual link points to the media share, not that which is visible in the hyperlink. Here they have created a phishing website that is exactly looking like the original website, only that domain name, one character is different. So this phishing also have evolved in recent times, because what happened was that these doc files and all macros, these are getting particularly blocked by the security solutions. So attackers have devised new techniques wherein they use lol bins, what are they called, living off the land binaries, wherein they utilize the executables already pre-installed in the operating system to execute malicious code like PowerShell, run DLL 32, cert util, reg spr 32, wscript, msHTA. These are some of the popular binaries. There are many other binaries also that can be used. So instead of that doc files or PDFs, what they do is they send a .lnk file. Basically, this is a Windows shortcut file. So it does not execute anything in itself, but it points to some other binary. Shortcut files point to some other executable files which get executed when you click that lnk file. So lnk file will execute built-in Windows command line tools like CMD, PowerShell, msHTA. So that lnk file will contain part that execute this particular binary with this parameters. Then that binary will download other payloads and execute them in memory. So they also use a technique of fileless attacks wherein nothing gets written on the disk. These living off the land binaries are executed and they download certain code and execute them in memory itself without writing anything on disk. So these basically bypass all antivirus protections. So these are one of the major techniques that have been used in recent times. So you can see in this attachment, in this sample mail, that the attachment contains .lnk file. What they do is they even change that icon of the lnk file to look like JPG or doc or something, and you can be tricked into clicking those. So this is one of the popular malwares, Emotet malware, which utilize similar techniques. They sent a LNK file in phishing mails. When executed, it downloaded certain, it invoked that W script, which executed VB script, Visual Basic script, which in turn chained into multiple things and executed the malware. So this is one of the most popular techniques. Also, LNK files can be sent as zip files. So they will send a zip file which will contain a LNK file when that decompressed, and further it could be executed. So we should be on lookout on such techniques. So what precautions we can take while dealing with such techniques or mails? We should always check the URL or the hyperlink what is present. We should always take our mouse pointer or manually copy it and check whether that domain is genuine or not. Also, we should verify that it is pointing to a proper HTTPS site, and we can manually, instead of just clicking, you should try and copy it manually, those domains. So we should ensure that we are using HTTPS domains because HTTP are susceptible to man-in-the-middle attack. Also, if you are opening any genuine website and you get a certificate error, there is a very strong possibility that connection is being getting intercepted. Some attacker is trying to inject itself between you and the website. Some sort of man-in-the-middle attack is happening. So it's very important that you see that HTTPS is there, green log is there. Also, certain best practices. Uh, Always check that it is not pointing to some IP address or something. Uh, Genuine websites are not hosted over IP addresses. Also, you can further verify the certificate also to check whether that it is issued to a valid company or the certificate is properly valid. There are certain websites wherein you can verify the reputation, URL void, whois.domain tools. So there are many more also where you can check the reputation of the domain. You can check whether the domain is not recently registered, because what attackers do is they continuously keep registering new domains for that scamming or for carrying out these activities, because most of those domains start getting blocked after a while. So they will register a new domain. So if a domain age is particularly new, so it could be a suspicious domain. Also, in your organization, you can apply a policy to block unknown, uncategorized domain names. So, what other tips we can follow? We should always verify the sender ID. You should expand and check the full email ID. Just don't uh, accept using just the display name. In the display name, attacker can control that part and can set any string there. So you should expand the entire email ID and verify whether the domain name of that email ID is genuine and that sender you can trust or not. Second, you should spell check the entire that domain. Link attachments. If the mail is trying to create some sort of urgency or some sort of, if it is trying to trigger some of your emotions like fear, greed, or something, if it is looking too good to be true, then those things you should look for. Now, one of the techniques that have been on rise in recent time is honey traps. There have been a lot of incident in recent times about honey traps. So it's very important to review how you are managing your social media, because uh, first thing is whatever you post there can be used for profiling you, and whatever we post once we cannot take it back. Somewhere or the other that information resides on the internet. Also the photos or any pics that we take through our phones, the that geolocation data is embedded in the metadata. Although certain social media platforms strip that data before posting, but certain might not. So that photo, from that particular photo, we can extract the metadata and identify where that particular picture was being taken. A lot of information is being posted out there in social media that can help that particular adversary to profile you. Especially in government organization, there have been a lot of incidents of that honey traps, wherein they try to befriend you in social media platforms, then try to trick you in opening certain binaries on all in your particular organization, and then via that they can establish a command and control channel or compromise a system in that particular network. So we take a lot of precaution regarding that. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, a lot of fake accounts are being registered to target individuals, and with those fake profiles, they are trying to befriend you and trick you into some malicious activity. Though you would not be involved in it intentionally, but later it could be a lot of hassle for you to prove that you are innocent. Now, ransomware. You must all be aware about these ransomware attacks. They have been on rise till since I think last 7 8 years. Basically, some malware that will come in your computer, it will encrypt all your data, important data, and it will demand ransom. So it's very important. What you should do is you should always have a backup of all your important data, that too offline backup, because online any backup that is being kept online can also be targeted via the same network attack. So one of the most popular ransomware attack was the WannaCry attack that happened in 2017. It particularly targeted Windows machines, Windows 7 and XP. So it exploited one of the vulnerabilities in the file sharing service. So that SMB vulnerability, it weaponized it, and it had the capability of automatically spreading from one machine to another. Such malwares are called worms. These malwares are the most, the dangerous types, because they have the capabilities of automatically spreading from one machine to another by exploiting a vulnerability in a particular service exposed over a network. So what precautions we can take against such things? First is that you should have a backup. Secondly, keep an antivirus, up to date antivirus for that. And thirdly, you should have an endpoint firewall enabled, and you should only allow explicit that services required on that machine. What happens is, when we install an operating system, lot of unnecessary services start by default, like this Windows file sharing service or others also. Many more Windows services, they automatically start by default on booting the system, and it can be targeted remotely. So what we should do is we should configure the firewall. We should disable everything on that system and explicitly allow whatever is required. Now, as we have seen after COVID-19, the working style have changed a lot in a lot of organizations. Earlier, organization only have had to worry about the security within their particular networks, within their corporate networks. Now, a lot of people are working from home. Lot of that services are exposed through that work from home model. So user can connect and work. So it's important that your home network and home PC are sufficiently protected. Otherwise, attacker can get a channel through your home PC into the corporate networks. Lot of such attacks have already happened. Like Cisco breach happened because one of the that that professional account was compromised. So what we have to do is we have to take care of the security of home routers. Whenever we are configuring home routers, they are left with default passwords. Also, so that has to be changed. Otherwise, anyone can compromise that Wi-Fi in your home. Also, make sure to have multi-factor authentication enabled in all your accounts. Now, this is a very important point. Majority of attacks are happening because the system softwares are not updated. They are exploiting the vulnerabilities existing in your software. Every vendor is releasing regular updates, but people are not updating. Even the corporates and employees in organizations are not updating their softwares. It is one of the most strongest defense against any attack. Just keep your software updated. We have to make the job of attacker difficult. So we have to keep everything updated. Even your mobiles, operating systems, and all your applications is very important that they are updated regularly. The another important aspect is the password management. Now you must have heard about a lot of data breaches have been happening in which the passwords are getting compromised, passwords are getting leaked, and they are being sold in dark web or other black markets. Even the Facebook kept the passwords in plain text for a lot of time. So as their database was breached, all the passwords were leaked. So it's important that passwords are regularly changed. Also, people keep passwords on desk. They post, they write on a paper and put that paper on desk. So that sort of practice should also be discouraged. So as you can see, with the amount of computing power that is available today, this much amount of time it shall take in compromising particular password. 7 characters 1 minute, 8 characters 1 hour. So bigger the password, more difficult it is to crack it. So make sure that you are using a strong password and you are regularly changing it. See, now NIST recommends that even if you're not using those that special characters or upper letters or those sort of passwords, we can go for passwords like phrases. If we more the length of password, more difficult it is to crack. So you can create a password using some phrases. For example, here now the password is not making any sense, but using a phrase, we can devise a password. One for all and all for one, the three musketeers. So that way that password is being constructed. So what you have to do is just remember some popular phrases and construct a password using that. Even if you don't want to translate it into something like that on the left, 14A or that, even a long phrase is sufficiently strong. It is difficult to crack a long password. So even something like your favorite movie names or anything like Kuch Hota Hai or something big names, you can create a password out of that. They are difficult to crack. Similarly, the second password is constructed out of the phrase for the first time ever, Manchester United lost 5-0 to Manchester City. So now this is a very important aspect, multi-factor authentication. It's very important. All services that have this feature available, we should enable it. We should also try to implement MFA in the services that we are configuring in our organizations, in our enterprises, because single factor, it is relatively easier to crack. One of the reasons why that banking frauds are less in India compared to other countries is because of the OTP thing that we need to have while a financial transaction happens. In foreign countries, that is missing. Therefore, the banking frauds are comparatively higher. So it's very important that you have a multi-factor authentication enabled. So attackers have in recent times devised techniques to target this also, like multi-factor authentication fatigue attack, wherein they generate lot of MFA approval requests on your phone. So sometimes by mistake, a person can approve that, click it by mistake and it might approve it. So that way they are able to log in. So you should look for those things also. Now the IoT devices. We have been using a lot of IoT devices in our homes, in our office networks also. Thing is, a lot of effort or focus has not been put on securing these devices. People are not patching the firmware regularly. Also, people are not changing the default passwords. So even if you look at lot of devices in your network, like storage, printers, those are not IoT, but still a lot of devices in your networks also would be running with default passwords, like routers, firewalls also. So that is one of the most important thing is to change the default passwords of all devices that are using and put a strong password. Majority of attacks are happening because of security misconfigurations or weak security implementation. Now USB attacks. This is one of the major attack vectors for propagating malwares. Apart from email, this is one of the most highly targeted attack vectors. So because malware can automatically write itself into a USB, and if USB auto run is enabled on a system, as soon as you plug a USB, that it can automatically execute code. Also, you should avoid public charging station. They could already be compromised, like Type-C ports, and they can be used to exfiltrate data. So don't plug your USB into any device that you don't trust. And if you have to, then do the virus scan first, because malware can easily propagate into your USB. Also make sure to encrypt the data on the USB device if possible, because if you lose the USB device, your data should not go in wrong hands. Also keep devices offline backup. You can keep on those hard disks also, USB hard disks. Now this public Wi-Fi, this is also important point, that don't use public Wi-Fi for any sensitive transactions or sensitive work. Uh, those public Wi-Fi can already be compromised and could be used to launch that man-in-the-middle attacks. So these are certain mechanisms which you can use to check whether your accounts have been compromised. Have I been pwned.com? It's a site wherein if you enter an email ID that is associated with different accounts, it will tell you in how many breaches your email ID was involved. Like your email ID is being used to register on LinkedIn, Zomato, or Gmail or wherever. So it will tell where all data breaches happened, the account wherein all accounts were leaked, wherein this email ID was involved. Now Microsoft Office, make sure that you disable the macros in your Office settings, and also don't enable it if if you get a prompt to enable it when you open some attachment received in an email that you don't trust. So this has been for a long period of time. This has been the major attack vectors for phishing. But with the new versions of Microsoft Office, Windows have that Microsoft has disabled macros by default. So attackers are shifting to newer techniques, as I had described earlier, that Windows shortcut files and other such mechanisms. So comparatively, macros abuse have decreased in recent times. Also, this social media hygiene, it is very important that we maintain this social media hygiene, which is being used to profile us and carry out targeted phishing attacks like spear phishing or that whaling sort of things. So don't share your sensitive photographs, videos. Do not accept friend request, and any personal information. Make sure that you don't share, and keep location services off as much as possible. Now, it has been known that whenever an organization is compromised or breached, it takes an average of 190 plus days to detect that a breach has happened, and further 69 to 70 days to contain that breach. So this is one of the most important part, is to detect a breach timely. In later slides, we will discuss about those advanced persistent threat techniques which attackers use to keep hidden, to keep it there, that compromises hidden for a long period of time. Also, you should inform any incident, any malicious behavior you observe in your systems to your ISO, respective IT teams. So the attacks have evolved over the years. Lot of evolution has happened. As we saw earlier, that cybercrime has grown into a $10 trillion industry. So there is a lot of incentive for attackers to carry out attacks. So they are evolving their techniques. Lot of sophistication has been getting built in the attacks. Earlier, password guessing or simple phishing pages, simple website replication and all were the attacks that used to happen. But now the advanced attacks have evolved, like APTs, advanced persistent threats, or other application level attacks that have grown in recent years. So as you can see that even if you are a reputed vendor, that does not mean that your products cannot be attacked or they cannot be exploited. All the major vendors have been exploited over the years to attack. Lot of time and efforts are invested in identifying vulnerabilities in these products. Attackers are heavily investing time. A lot of vulnerabilities are being identified and exploited. So top vulnerable vendors, you can see Microsoft, Oracle, Cisco, and all these products we are using in day-to-day lives. So it's important that we keep our that softwares updated as regularly as possible. So these are the CV details. As you can see, every year the number of CVs are growing. These are CV basically a database of all the vulnerabilities that are identified in a product. So you can check by version, software version, that how many vulnerabilities affect the software and what are the remedies you can take. So these should be patched as early as possible. Now, what is a zero-day attack? See, zero-day attack is an basically exploitation of a vulnerability that even the developer of that particular product is not aware of. Suppose there is a Microsoft product or a Adobe product or anything, it could have a security flaw or weakness that even that particular vendor is not aware of. So these are the most dangerous form of vulnerabilities because there is no defense against these. Even antivirus can only protect you against vulnerabilities that are known. Any unknown thing can not be prevented easily. So these are heavily exploited. When one zero-day vulnerability is discovered, it heavily exploited and it can cause a lot of damage. So in 2001, 66 zero days were identified. Every year, these numbers are also rising. So here now we will discuss about the advanced persistent threat. Basically, these techniques are employed in state-sponsored attacks. So the primary purpose of these attacks are data exfiltration, to gather important data about your particular enterprise or organization. So a lot of effort are being put in by the adversaries in carrying out these attacks. The purpose is to compromise a network and remain hidden in it for weeks and years, and as much as possible remain hidden and slowly keep exfiltrating data and keep spying on other activities that are happening. So there are four major steps in a advanced persistent threat. First is initial compromise. So most important thing is first getting an initial foothold within an organization. Now initial compromise as a service is now a service offering happening in black markets, wherein they will just give you an initial compromise of a system. From there on, you can take the attack forward. So that is such an important part, initial compromise, wherein they just need to compromise one system within your network. How can they do it? They can employ the phishing techniques, wherein if you open a malicious attachment or something, your systems get compromised, and using that system, they can further expand the attack. Or they can remotely exploit any system or service that is publicly available, like your websites, DNS server, email server, or FTP server. So any service that is publicly accessible, they can try to exploit it, and using that system, they can further expand the attack. So initial compromise is the first stage. Second is lateral movement. Lateral movement is moving from one system to another, using one system as pivot and expanding attack from that system to other systems in the network. The thing is, majority of defense is employed by an organization on its perimeter. We employ a lot of security measures on our perimeter. In the network also, in the perimeter we put firewalls, lot of UTMs, IPS, antivirus, lot of that defense is built on the perimeter. But within the network, while moving from one system to another, there is limited defense. Within your LAN, you can easily access other machines. You can take remote access or file sharing, SSH. Everything is open within the network. From outside the network, the limited services are accessible. So once you are within that network, one system is compromised. Using that system, you can easily move within the network. That's how they spread the attack. And the third part is privilege escalation. They try to escalate the privilege on the compromised systems to try and get admin privileges, so that they can easily maintain their foothold on that system and easily exfiltrate data. And the fourth part is data exfiltration. They slowly exfiltrate data out of your networks. They compress the data so that you won't detect significant activity. The purpose of APT is to create as little noise as possible, so that cyber defense systems don't easily detect any abnormal activity on the network. So you must have heard about the Stuxnet. Is a very popular attack, APT, that happened in Iranian nuclear power plant, in which their adversary used multiple zero-day vulnerabilities. They chained together multiple zero-day vulnerabilities to that damage the nuclear power plant. So what can we do against it? We should follow the principle of zero trust. In the next slide, we will discuss about zero trust, but it is one of the principles that has been evolving. Also, we should use features of application whitelisting. Allow only those applications that are required. Other applications should not be allowed to access internet itself. Either you can block the execution of application or block internet access of applications. Only allow what is required. Behavioral analysis is important, because majority of earlier security products focused on prevention. They were mainly targeting prevention, like antivirus, IPS, or UTMs, firewalls. Earlier security products were focused on preventive techniques. But now it is important to focus on detection, because one way or the other, there are chances that we can get breached. Every organization keeps getting breached. So we should assume that we might get breached, and we should develop mechanisms wherein we can detect breach in a timely manner. So we should deploy certain solutions like SIEM or endpoint detection and response. Certain those kind of solutions are available, which you can deploy, which are able to detect any abnormal activity happening within the network. Like suppose one machine is trying to log into multiple machines within a network, like 10, 15 machines, which it normally does not do. So this is one suspicious behavior. Similarly, generating traffic at odd times, other kind of similar behaviors can be combined, and detection can happen. So now we will discuss about this zero trust security. See, earlier our perimeters were designed in a way that we had limited trust on users or machine outside of our perimeter. In terms of network, I am talking, but within the perimeter, we trusted everything. But now the principles of zero trust has evolved, that says that we don't have to trust anyone, not even a user, a device, or anything. So basically, even a device user have to specifically authenticate for every application or service that it has to access. So earlier, suppose we had VPNs, wherein once we establish VPNs, then we got access to entire networks. But with the principles of zero trust, after authenticating a users and a device, only specific access to particular applications is given based on the authorizations policy that are being defined. So it's important to embed zero trust principles in your security designs so that we can contain cyber impact of cyber breaches. So that's all for today's presentation.